Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, here we go. And dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're here. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. Nathan's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. I'm Vincent Finelli. And if you'd like to call us, Doc Ram's with us today, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. And the listen line, it's up 24/7, 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Welcome, Rick.
Morning. You remember that song, Pump Up the Volume? Pump Up the Volume. Thank you.
Hey,
That's
Rick.
the way it is, man. I can barely hear you.
Okay, I've got a question for you. I've been thinking about science.
And, you and Shealy. We're going to have to shoot him one day.
Well, here, Joey's great. Love
yes,
Joey.
he
Joey
is
from Michigan.
possibly one of my best and most outstanding lead scouts. Grace Thorne posted something the other day that was wonderful on the variation between the Earth being round and the Earth being flat. And I sent that off to John B. Wells because he's been having a battle with a bunch of people arguing with him on the Earth being flat. What a bunch of nonsense, man. And this post that Grace came up with was perfect. Jesus is a light bulb. Makes all that you can see it. If it was flat, then that would mean that everybody has sunlight at the same time, right?
Right.
There's your argument, man, on flat Earth and where that goes.
Yep. Well, depending on the angle of the Earth being flat, yeah, that would be correct. But there could be angles that would cause us to have sunlight at different times, right?
So there we are.
Assuming the Earth is revolving around the sun.
Oh, it is?
Hey,
oh, wow, that changes everything. Wait a minute, I have to go back and rethink everything now. Wow.
So here's a question about science. Seriously. In the 1940s, the early 1940s, we were really bent on developing an atomic weapon, right? We wanted to do that. So there was a lot of flurry in that particular area of science. And we're interested in blowing things up, and so were our enemies. We wanted to do more destruction to each other. And so science was something that we're very interested in. And then in the 50s, we were interested in science. We were interested in nuclear energy, and we were interested in all kinds of science, chemical science, and so forth. Well, has science almost stopped where we're interested in everything? Has it almost stopped? Or are we just not aware of it?
It's lost its luster for credibility with peer review saying that chemtrails are contrails as a metaphor. That's where everything has gone down into a black hole going into an alternate universe. I have to tell you that science made a massive change in the 80s. That's when it happened. I was there to witness it. In the 70s, if you had a harebrained idea, and it didn't matter where it went. They funded it because we didn't know. Something changed where it didn't matter anymore in the 80s because we had enough to run the planet as a machine around money. And that's how Cyndi Lauper, money changes everything. Materialistic girl with Madonna. You know, the whole thing is wrong. And intent.
So I'm thinking about Elon Musk. And so people are looking at him and saying, what a great guy, you know, space travel, electric car, electric.
Well, the great Satan. Well, I mean, you know, there he is.
Well, I'm tongue in cheek here. No, I'm not saying he's a great guy. I'm just using his words, but you know, well, he's talking about space travel. Well, we've talked about space travel in the '60s, electric cars. We had an electric car in 1906 with the nickel iron battery. Edison made the battery for the electric car. I saw the 1906 model of the electric car. I saw it. I mean, a couple of years ago, I visited a museum, and I was right up there. I could touch the electric car of 1906. Tunnels. You know, he wants to have tunnels underground. There aren't any. These aren't new ideas. These are old ideas. We've had subway tunnels for decades.
It is about marketing, just like Steinmetz and Edison. And I watched when solid-state physics came of birth in the early 60s, and there was a possibility that computers would be made by Corning and using puffs of air and ceramics. And that was where NOR-NAND logic came in, using Schmidt triggers at MIT. And what happened was, instead, we went off into the direction of integrated circuits and electricity, as opposed to using puffs of air and switching devices that use rotation of air puffs. And I have to say, the computers back then were more suitable, made out of Corning and using puffs of air for outer space, because they were not affected by gamma rays. So why, with that in mind, did we go off in the direction of electricity, of marketing?
Well, from what I've learned, the first underground railway, if you want to call it, we'll call it underground railway rather than a subway, was in London in 1863, and then in Boston, acquired subway trains. New York opened the first section of its subway in 1904, and Philadelphia a couple years later in 1907, a few years later. Okay, so we've had subways for a long time. So Elon Musk's, boring company.
Do you know what Elon Musk wants, man? He wants that big diamond up there. That's what it's all about. There is a solid planetoid that's a solid diamond. Now, can you imagine what a diamond that size might be used for? And there's where you have the great Satan or the great God. Everything is double-edged, science included. You use water as a exclusion zone water as opposed to deuterium, and there's the difference in the way the same piece of water is used. It's a metaphor.
And when you talk about diamonds, Rick, I understand that there are plenty of uses for diamonds, including sharpening stones and cutting concrete. And a lot of uses for diamonds.
There you go, man. You have options.
Right. Well, but diamonds, the diamond prices are kept high artificially by manipulating the supply. There are more diamonds that are available than we want to buy. So the diamond companies, the mines, are keeping the supply artificially low to keep the prices high.
Well, that's called a market order in crops. They put a cap on it so that it's not storable anymore, and there's always a constant demand that keeps the price correct. Like they put a market order on peppermint oil. You can produce so many barrels, and the rest of it has to be put in storage. That's that. So that it keeps the price regulated. And Germany has always tried to control the market like that by having shortages and surpluses. And once you have shortages and surpluses, now you have control.
Yeah, no question about it. Just just
the stock
create a shortage of
exchange.
food.
You know, here's the deal about the New York Stock Exchange. It can't fail by definition now because it's being run by AIs. And the problem is it's still tipping down, crashing, burning, and yet nobody gets it. We're living on a cloud, and it's full of nothing.
I once knew an investment banker. He was a young guy, and he would put deals together, leverage buyouts, mergers, acquisitions, those kinds of things. And, you know, if you looked at him closely, as I did, because I got to know this guy, his life was a mess, an absolute mess. And, you know, he could hardly function. However, he was buying and selling and putting deals together that were, you know, destroying people's lives, you know, through these leverage buyouts. You know. Anyway, that's my little take on Wall Street. I had an offer to join a Wall Street firm back when I graduated from the university, and I just decided I did not want to be part of that. You know, I studied it, I majored in it, minored in it, and decided I didn't want any part of it. Rick, I was thinking about an article I read about cars and trucks and Great Britain. We talked about this yesterday. Great Britain is planning to ban new vehicles in 2040. 2040 is not all far. That's not that far away. And they say that it's because of a pollution crackdown, and they want to see a ban on internal combustion engines, gasoline-powered and diesel-powered vehicles. I've been thinking about this. I don't see how this can possibly work, because I can't think of a way of powering vehicles, trucks, you know, to transport materials from in the supply chain. I can't figure out how we can do this without using some kind of energy, like petroleum-type energy. There are locomotives for trains that could move, you know, heavy loads, but typically they're diesels. They're diesels, and if they are electric powered, that electricity has to come from somewhere. Does it come from coal? Does it come from natural gas? Does it come from fuel oil? Does it come from hydroelectric? No matter where it comes from, there's pollution involved somewhere in that generation. Can we talk about that when we come back? Doc Ram's with us. Doc Ram's with us. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, DocRam.com. So, Rick, there's an article on the internet I was reading, and it talks about how Great Britain wants to ban cars and trucks from its roads by 2040. And it's going to do it through disincentives. It's going to increase fees in order for us to use vehicles on those roads. And I'm having a really tough time figuring out how this is going to work. How, you know, these legislators, these people who we allegedly selected to represent our interests and who are allegedly representing our interests, how do they come up with these ideas? And I don't think we have the science in place to replace the internal combustion engine, because we can't seem to carry the amount of energy in some other means other than petrol fuel. Is there some kind of a device that will power trucks and cars in order to let us do the kind of things we're doing? Or are we talking about a radical shift?
Yeah, water.
Okay? How's that going to work?
Water works.
Okay.
You know, you can put water in your gas can, and that'll work. That's a simple conversion right out of the gate. Now, combustion, where you're doing controlled explosions, is an older concept of propulsion. And the newer directions that Boeing is going with their magnetic monopoles is a whole new concept in how to move through space and time. And it presumes that the Earth is not flat, by the way. It presumes that space is curved, but it allows a new concept of moving from here to there without having to do it with an explosion, and a concept called momentum. Now, that's what a cavitation bubble does, where they put it around a torpedo, and that torpedo now can move at Mach 2 through the water. It's where the torpedo is not moving in water, it's moving in air with a bubble around it that is interfacing with water using exclusion zone water. Water will be the next breakthrough in technologies, plural, and the way we work with water. The problem is, like combustion, controlled explosions, you have the double-edged sword again, predicated on intent. If you put water inside a fullerene, it becomes the finest antioxidant in the world for bioremediating radiation poisoning. However, if you take that exclusion zone water out and you put deuterium in it, now you have a 9/11 weapon that will dissolve and blow up an aircraft with no forensics. So, welcome to the new world. And our value systems of why and what we do and why we do it. That's where the difference all lies, is intent. And when you realize that most everything was done around application for marketing, well, now you understand why we have so much plastic. That's DuPont. Everything's overpackaged. That's what refuge piles are all about. Everything, it's about intent and the way we go about our business. And if you do it this way, then this happens. And if you do it that way, that happens. And you have choice, just like God said.
We don't consider plastic of having much value at all. And the proof of that is you just look in anybody's trash can. You look in their kitchen trash can. You look in their 40-gallon trash can that they put out at the curb. You look along the highways and byways, and you'll see plastic stuff everywhere. We just think it's a nuisance after we've used whatever was packaged in there. We think that the packaging is useless and we throw it away. However, I'm looking around the studio. There would be no broadcasting right now if it weren't for plastic.
Or automobiles.
The fuel delivery hoses and under the hood of your automobile, the brake lines that have rubber and plastic in them, the fan belts, the serpentine belts that have petrochemicals in them. I'll tell you what, we'd be in a world of hurt. I wouldn't even be able to. Well, I'm looking at the microphone cable that's attached to the end of the microphone.
Man in the world. There it is.
Yeah. So, do we have an alternative? Richard Allen Miller's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. If you'd like to go to his website, richardallenmiller.com. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. And that's where you can peruse the offerings. You can buy his books there. And yes.
I'm going to, this next week, come out with a bunch of new audiobooks. I've already got them made up, getting ready to brew the ad up and everything like that. And the first 500, I'm going to throw an extra little gift in that nobody knows about. It's going to be a surprise. And these audiobooks are all going to contain the rare occult and magic texts that I refer to when I taught these courses at Harvard. This is 11 years of audio courses that I taught at each one is about 9 weeks, 2 hours each, with support download libraries of rare books you can't find anywhere. And if I talk about demons,
really
I will go the Lesser Keys of Solomon by Solomon the King, and talking about the fallen angels and the Lemegeton, and here it is. This is the book that I'm referring to. Good luck on how this all plays. They're probably going to brand me as a witch at the stake. But to me, hidden, occult means hidden, and meta means beyond. And the two are where we need to go now in our overview of what's going on in our world. We need to keep our eyes open, and that's why I'm coming out with these audiobooks. Plus, it's the way the music industry beat up Amazon when they started bootlegging music. They can't bootleg live. And so audiobooks are going to be the same thing.
Okay. So, Rick, do we go to docram.com or Richard Allen Miller?
That's my Facebook. That is no longer, I'm going to post there, everything like I did, but from now on, instead of posting there, I now have a webmaster that's teaching me how to post on my site, where it's a reflection on Facebook. Facebook sucks. And I am going to tell you that Facebook has gone the way of AOL. When AOL changed from PC Link to AOL, that's when I did those audiobooks. Mark Hume hired me to set up their download libraries to make it attractive for people that were looking for freeware and shareware. They wanted download libraries where they could go in and get things they couldn't find anywhere else. And that is going to be what my new website, Richard Allen Miller, is going to be about. And the oak-publishing.com is where my books are, not /shop. You can go to my website and pick up my books. You can go to Facebook and pick up my books. But my books are going to be on a dedicated server so that I can't get hacked in again. And even still, did you know that I have maybe more than 800 attempts on my website every day? 800. This is crazy. And to be a celebrity, as I'm becoming, is nuts. I didn't sign up for this. And I had FBI call me yesterday trying to help me. I have a lot of grief going on around me, and what I'm trying to do is laugh my way through it. What? Me worry? Well, it comes with the territory, and let me tell you, there's a lot of creepy people out there that are off their meds.
So we go to oak-publishing.com.
Go to richardallenmiller.com. Start there. That will be the news of the day, like that sheet that I gave you for today. That's a typical day from my magical memory. And I have a sheet like that for every day going back 7 years. And imagine all of that cross-referenced on my website with a search engine. And you want to find out about, 9/11, and you can say everything is a rich man's trick. Watch that movie. That names the assassins of John F. Kennedy because of the new papers. And you wanted to talk about the ones they discovered here in Oregon. Listen, this is what we're going to do is we're going to start putting this stuff up. So the Internet is our tool for enlightenment, not a control like they're trying to do now. That's what they did. They gave the Internet away to the international world, for the world, what is it? Illuminati, that's a good word, to take over and control the world. The Illuminati was basically a thing from the church. It was the Jesuits that got pissed off in the 14th century when the Church of Rome, or actually around the year 1000, when Pope Innocent I declared war on the Catholics. That is where the Catholic Church and the teachings of Christ went off in different directions. And right now, the Catholic Church and Rome is an embarrassment because of their pedophilia and their penchants for using drugs and sex with bishops and archbishops. It's an embarrassment. That's why they're going to call him the last pope. He isn't going to survive.
Rick, I was thinking about what you were talking about. I think it's time we say so too, publicly. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with following Jesus Christ. What's wrong is following some minister that's telling you an interpretation that only you can do. That's what my courses are about. Finding your own answers. Well, and I don't think you need to have a broker between you and your God.
Absolutely not. Nobody speaks on your behalf.
Right. So I don't need an agent. I don't need a broker between me and my God. Mrs. Finelli doesn't. Nobody in our family does. Rick, I was thinking about we were talking about the internal combustion engine, and I wanted to ask you: Is there an alternative, a viable alternative right now? Are we close to one?
Well, Mazda
we mentioned water.
Mazda was trying to do something called the rotary engine, which still used combustion, but was using its centripetal force. as a different way of pistons going up and down and supposed to going around in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
And so
what a great,
we have variations
what a great
in
idea.
our technologies. And now, instead of using fossil fuels, we can use water. That blows.
Okay. How does that work? How do we use water?
What's that?
How do we use water?
The water is just a simple conversion on your catalytic systems in the new cars. I have a friend of mine that has a repair shop, City Automotive, and next door he had a 2-acre strawberry field. And what they were doing was selling fresh strawberries. And what we did was we made a proposal where at the end of the year they harvest all that strawberry leaf as biomass. And what he was going to do is have a engine right next to the field running off that strawberry leaf and showing you how he can do a simple conversion for less than $1,000 on new engines to run off biomass.
Okay.
Now,
so
that's,
we can do
alcohol.
Yeah. Oh, alcohol. Okay.
Yeah,
so alcohol.
Water, but water is a simple one too. And now you can run it off your urine. I gotta hurry up and take a leak. I'm gonna leak into the gas can.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think they did in Dune? That's the same way they did it in Dune. Sweat and urine are essentially the same chemistry, and they had still suits. By the way, I watched the Passion of Christ the other day with my girlfriend. What a moving movie that was. To realize that it wasn't about Rome being bad. It was the Jews. They did not want to have the Messiah. Why? It disrupts the control of their flock. And Christ was teaching a scene philosophy, which is from Hindu mysticism. Treating others like you'd like to be treated yourself. That is not Christian. That came from Upanishads and going way back. It's time that people wake up and realize there's something more going on, and what it's called is marketing. How did George Carlin put it? He said, God has everything, but he needs more money.
Sounds like
That's
something
the way
that you
George
might hear.
Carlin put it. Listen, none of it's real. And that's why my girlfriend and I go to different churches, denominations, Catholic, Jewish, whatever. We go to all these different churches each week trying to find what kinds of messages are being given in my community. And boy, are they interesting to watch the discrepancies.
Rick, is there a way of splitting hydrogen and oxygen from water without electrolysis? Is there a way that would be viable for use in an engine? So, for example, I would think that we could build a hydrogen-powered vehicle. Not easily, but we could do it. I think Mercedes has been working on it.
That's what CERN is about. Rapid transit. Going from Switzerland to Chicago, Fermi Labs, in 1 billionth of a second. Newsflash is, comes out the other end is not you. It comes out as a clone. Because it's a whole new meaning to white hole, black hole, and why the human has 2 brains as a cavitation process. It's a new way of looking at reality. Into the out of.
Now, we're not talking about bending space-time for travel, are we?
Well, what is space and time?
Well, I listened to Stephen Hawking's description of it, his 6-hour description on an audio book many times, and I'm here to say, I don't know. It's hard to figure it out.
It's because we're moving into a newer way or different way of looking at reality. And the reason, and the way I put it is, when I watch a woman rip a steel car door off an automobile in flames to save her daughter, how can she do that when her bones are not as strong as steel?
Really good point. When we come back, I'd like to talk about electric vehicles and the energy loss in the power distribution system we have, the grid. I'll tell you what the numbers are when we come back. Doc Ram's with us. Rick, so I was interested in how much energy is lost, how much electricity is lost in the transmission lines. So how much electricity disappears between a power plant and your wall outlet. And I've got some numbers I want. Yeah.
Impedance, yes.
Yeah. And
resistance and impedance.
So there are...
means it has an imaginary component that doesn't translate into the physical world, but has effects in the physical world.
And so when you look at an electric vehicle, there are a number of people who think that this thing is just pollution-free. That's absolutely not true. Because when you plug that...
How about perpetual motion? What is perpetual? Well, the tides are perpetual because as long as the Earth rotates around the sun and turns on its own axis, there's going to always be a component of spin and Coriolis forces on the Earth that can be used. Oregon, the state of Oregon, has done things with the rising and falling of tides, with buoys out in the harbor going up and down. Now, you go up to Nova Scotia, where the tides are 60 feet every day, and that's enough up and down motion, perpetual if you want to look at it that way, to power the entire eastern seaboard over nuclear energy, which is now its current primary source of energy, not coal. And we've gone from coal to nuclear energy, and now with a simple change of buoys just going up and down, just that up and down motion is a energy that can be used efficiently and inefficiently. Solar. The sun always rises. It doesn't matter whether it's a cloudy day or not, there's the energy from the sun. And so a friend of mine has a Chevrolet, little battery-powered coffin that has a battery. That's all it is, big battery, and the engine is a little electric engine rather than a combustion engine. And what I'm going to design for him is a little carrying case that spreads out as a solar battery rather than him having to go to a charging center where when he gets low on energy, he has to put the car at rest and he unfolds the solar winds, sails. That's what they used to call them when we were using them in space, solar sails. And you work on the winds from the sun. Now, there's all kinds of different directions that we can go on that. Are they efficient? Well, in solid-state physics now, the conversion of sunlight into electric energy has gotten to a point where the efficiency ratio is unbelievable, and they're making breakthroughs in that arena every day. Those are called, fuel cells. And the idea of converting one form of energy into another. Whenever you convert...
Well, I can tell you it works.
No, whenever you convert, there will always be losses. You got to pay the...
Well, I can tell you that
the ferryman.
So, PV panels work really well. I've got them on our barn, and we're generating power via the sun. We're converting it from DC 32 volts, 33 volts into AC
a simpler way
with an inverter.
Pipe on the top of your roof with that black roof. Just run some pipe with water through it and let the sun heat the water.
That's next. It really is.
That's next. There it is. With just some black paint, you're good to go.
Yeah. Why use wood? Why use combustion to generate a fire?
Use thermal
and have the
from
fire heat the water.
Yeah, set up a thermal converter where you've got lava.
When we come back, Rick, I want to share with our class the power losses by state and why there are power losses that differ by states. So when we think electricity is clean energy, well, it's sort of clean, but there are losses, and I think you're going to find these losses in the power lines are staggering. We'll be right back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and his website is richardallenmiller.com. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. richardallenmiller.com. David's on hold in Illinois. David will be with you in just a second. Rick, I was looking at the line losses, the transmission losses of electric power in the United States, and it ranges from a low of 2.2% loss to a high of 13.3%. And what happens is distribution losses, I'm talking about the grid, tend to be lower in rural states like Wyoming and North Dakota. And the question is why? And the answer is less densely populated areas have more higher voltage, low loss transmission lines and fewer lower voltage, high loss distribution lines. So what we're saying is if you live in a concentrated population area, the transmission lines from building to building to building are of lower voltage, and they have higher resistance and they have higher losses. If you live in an area where there is less population, you'll find that the transmission lines are of higher voltage and they have lower losses. So let me give you some of these numbers to think about. In Wyoming, the average electricity loss for the state of Wyoming is about 2.2%. So from the power generation plant to your outlet, or to your home, let's say, or to your business, 2.2% is lost in transmission. North Dakota, 2.2%. West Virginia, 2.4%. Montana, 3.5%. Now, in the middle of the pack, you've got Texas, you've got Hawaii, Connecticut, New York State in the 6% neighborhood. Going higher, you've got Wisconsin at 8%. You've got Massachusetts at 8.7%, Maryland at 9.5%, New Jersey at 9.6%, Virginia 10.1%, Delaware at 11%, and the highest loss area is Idaho. Not sure why Idaho is at 13.3%, but it is. So you have a range of power line losses in the United States of 2.2% at a low in Wyoming, and Idaho is a high at 13.3%. That's a lot of loss, 13.3%, getting from the power generation plant to your home or business. The United States average is 6.5% loss. So when you think about these electric cars being very efficient and non-polluting, on average, 6.5% of the electricity is lost getting it, just delivering it to where you'd plug in your charger for your car. So, and then your charger has a loss, and then the batteries have a loss, and then there are friction losses when you operate that electric vehicle, and then you have losses in the power generation system, and then you have
I might remind everybody that this is the sixth epoch or trial by fire as a metaphor. Electricity and is not a very good system of power. Why? Well, less than 3 weeks ago, we had a burst off the sun that made the Carrington effect look flawless. It would have brought the entire Earth down into the Stone Age had it been directed toward the Earth. It wasn't. Went out toward Mars. So those colonies are probably going to get burned out. But pulse, pulse, electromagnetic pulse. And I'm saying that, that whole technology, in my opinion, is flawed. And there's lots of other...
I guess what you're...
Yeah, go ahead.
You're talking about the dependence on the on solid-state electronics.
Nuclear power plants safe, yeah. The New Madrid fault line is in deep problems right now. There are more than 20 Daiichi-like reactors on that New Madrid fault line right near your home, and they're all And if we have a grid down situation, and we will, not maybe, we will have a grid down situation. Just north of you, they had it down for, 12 hours just last week. That will be enough to cause the rest of those reactors to go critical, like Fukushima. Fukushima is as if we've already had World War III.
In terms of radiation?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, what you're saying is we've already...
Yeah, we don't talk about what's happening to our oceans, of course, and it's an inconvenient discussion, of course, so let's focus on something that's not real, like global warming. That is not real, and one of the reasons why Trump pulled out of the Paris Accord, it's not real. It's a political move to control the Earth. Always.
Rick, are you saying...
If you do ice samples, you can see that we're right on cycle from historically of the Earth heating and cooling. Has nothing to do with man. Man contributes, but we're talking again about 1%, not 20%. Less than nothing. It's the sun. The sun, when I was a kid, used to be yellow. It's different now. And the radiation coming off that, what we call UVBs, are to such an extent, they are now causing skin cancer and second-degree burns on people being exposed where normally they would not. And I would no longer be out in the sun getting a suntan today, then it's dangerous. And we're talking about skin cancer now.
Rick, we have an orchard that we planted several years ago, and we've got a garden that we've planted. And I'll tell you what, the orchard does not like being in the sun. The orchard is having a really tough time.
Your fruit, yeah.
It doesn't like it. And these are, fruit trees. Can you imagine fruit trees not liking being in the sun? It's extreme rays of the sun are drying out these leaves. They can't take it. We have an avocado plant that loves the sun. I had to put it in the shade because it can't take the sun.
That's exactly correct. The leaf will brown on you.
Yes.
And
we've got
if it's
David in Illinois. Welcome.
Imagine what it's doing to you.
Yeah.
And now we have the solar eclipse coming up. And the last time we had one of those was possibly during the crucifixion period of Christ. And we have an event that is going to trigger a whole series of cosmic events having nothing of biblical proportions. And it's all cyclic. We've been here before. The last group that this happened to had spaceflight, and they crawled out of a cave. Wakey.
David in Illinois, you're on with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. David in Illinois, welcome.
How you doing? I heard you guys talking about water and power and stuff. In my later years of high school, when I went and all the way up until I started working there, I worked with engineers for the state of Illinois when I was and those guys showed me a lot. And the government doesn't want you to be off grid. They had 2 boiler systems that were coal power and 2 generators. It used to generate power for the whole area. And they would service them every 6 months to make sure they worked, but they actually would not use them at all anymore. Even though they had them going, they would not activate them to run electricity anymore. They went off the grid, And you were talking about earlier. About water. Go ahead.
Hold, David. I'm a little lost in what you're saying. There are 2 power generation systems that were not being used. Why were they not being used?
Because they went off to the local power company instead. Yet they still maintenance them and ran them.
Who owned these?
It was the state of Illinois. It was a place. I went to school there my last few years, and then I went to work there. And so I got to work with the engineers, and they showed me how to operate this stuff and showed me how they ran it. And they taught me a lot. Because the one engineer actually would take me to his home, and you brought up about water, and we actually, on his property, he had a large amount of land, and he actually built 2 water wells on his property, and we put piping to his gutters. Now, when they had the drought in like 90, somewhere around 90, his property was the only property that did not run out of water. And then the city wanted to charge him $1,800 to put a line through his property, but not even tap into it.
Yeah, that's in Oregon. There's a guy that actually tried to collect his rainwater, and he's in prison right now because, quote, what falls on the state of Oregon belongs to the state of Oregon, not you personally on your land.
It was now he built his own homes out there, and the home he built. You
can't do that legally here.
Yeah,
I can only imagine what Florida's like.
Yeah.
that leads that home.
Yeah, he put brick and stone in the middle, and he was able to keep his house warm all winter long with just a brick or two of wood in the center there, and it was beautiful in there because it maintained that heat within the stone. All day and night. But I couldn't believe it when we put the water, tanks in, and they wanted to charge him that much money. That wasn't even tapping into it. That was just to go through his property.
Yeah, easement. Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing's corrupt.
Anything else, David?
It's about money. That's what it's not about service to the community. Just like serve and protect is no longer about serve and protecting the community. It's about jail space and being able to get $65 a night for a convict.
Now they
David, thanks so much for your call.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your call. I'll be right back. So, Rick, we were talking about coronal mass ejections or like solar flares coming from our sun. And these charged particles can take several days to reach the Earth's atmosphere. And when they do, they can be disruptive to electronics.
They can blow out your car's ignition system so that the car no longer works.
And
that's your just-in-time delivery system with food.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just a tip.
And the trucks that use these systems to measure their rate of travel, where they are, their locations at all times. A lot of this information is internet combined with satellite communications. And then on the ground, we have these digital computers which are susceptible to being damaged by these coronal mass ejections. And so if we're looking at the supply chain, we're looking at a potential for failure that is enormous. We're looking at the power grid failing. We're looking at commerce failing. We're looking at medicine. Hospitals absolutely positively require electricity. You can't run a hospital on a generator. The generators aren't big enough. I mean, they might be able to supply critical loads, but not the entire hospital. And then, when you buy a gallon of gasoline with your credit card, that involves a satellite communications transaction as well.
Well, so pumping it out of the tank into your car. There's going to be all kinds of whoops, and it's going to go downhill from there. That's why horses are going, and bicycles. That's why Amsterdam is run mostly by bicycles now, and why the original concepts of Ecotopia, that's by Ernest Callenbach, talks about 1984, the state of Jefferson closes down its doors to the world, and then they pick up that book in Ecotopia in 2001. This was written a long time ago, where they allow people in to visit for the first time in so many years, and how people live without electricity or technology as we currently have it. And this is different than Animal Farm and some of the original concerns of Ecotopia and the idea of what are we going to do now. Michael Tobias is at UC Berkeley and wrote Voice of the Planet, that was later put on by Meryl Streep and William Shatner in a 9-part series with PBS, Voice of the Planet. That's an interesting one, where a supercomputer in Himalayas decides to start communicating to man in its needs, because we're no longer efficient in the way we live on Earth. We're on such a fragile form of lifestyle that it's going to change everything. And so that's why you're a survivalist.
When you talk about
USAprepares.com. I mean, that's what it's all about, trying to wake people up to reconsider what's important in their life and why.
And Rick, maybe we're not doing such a good job. maybe we're not doing such a good job, and I'll tell you why. So it's really overcast here today. So before the broadcast, I ran to the solar charge converter, and I was reading off the display, and it's like nothing. It's not generating any electricity at all today. So, as long as the batteries are charged, we've got electricity. But if the sun doesn't come out, we're not going to be charging the batteries with the solar panels. Now we have an option. We can fire up a diesel generator and charge the batteries with that, and then we're good for a while until the batteries get depleted, until we have to charge them up again. But what I'm saying is, yeah, we're better off than not having it, but it's still not utopia. It really isn't. And we are wasting so much. And all you have to do, class, if you want to see how much you yourselves are wasting, just look in your kitchen trash can. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the bread wrappers. I'm talking about the cans that soup come in. I'm talking about the canned vegetable cans. We are wasting so much. We buy a can on sale for 39 cents, and then we empty the contents into a pot and we cook it on the stove, and we throw out the can. We throw out the can. And how many cans do we throw out? I'll bet you we throw out 20, 30, 40 a week for an average family. Where'd all those cans go? We pile them up in the landfill, and we make mountains out of them. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us in class. We've been talking about the Carrington event. That was in 1859. And there weren't very many electronic devices at the time. We had the telegraph system, and what happened was the blast from the sun, the electromagnetic pulse hopped onto the telegraph lines, and it set some fires, and some people got shocked. But it wasn't it wasn't anything like what could happen today. It was pretty serious at the time, but today it'd be very, very serious. And in 1989, you might remember, there was an event, a severe magnetic storm wreaked havoc on Canada's hydroelectric power grid, and it kept 6 million people without electricity for about 9 hours. So that happened, and now we're looking at way more damage because of the dependence on solid-state electronics.
I had something happen here less than 2 months ago. High wind dropped a tree that fell on a transformer at the bottom of my hill that took power out to 6,000 people. And it took them no internet, no telephone, no nothing in communication. Mm-hmm. And it took them 7 days to get it restored because the part had to come from China. Mm. And that's just a local communications thing, not even talking about grid.
Yeah.
We're fragile.
All right. Let's talk about China for a second. Bruce K and I decided to buy some batteries for our solar systems. And we combined efforts, and we placed an order to buy batteries directly from China. Actually, I should call them nickel iron cells. And we bought 8,000 pounds of them, and we split the order. And it took, first we had to pay for it, and money went into a black hole. We paid for them, a hefty deposit. Then it took 30 days to build them, and then it took 30 days to get them shipped here, and then it took clearance, in the United States Customs, and then it took a 2,000-mile trip from the port to Springfield, Missouri, and then we had then I picked them up with a really heavy trailer and brought them to the farm, and then we brought half the batteries to brew. So it was quite an adventure buying batteries. So what I'm saying is, if you think that you can buy something that has not been completed from China, and you think that all you do is, call them up or send them an email and off it comes, it's not the case. It's when you deal with a factory in China, typically it hasn't been made yet. They're going to make it for you. And now here's something that they're already making. So they didn't have to invent anything. It wasn't custom. It was a size that they would normally make. It's just that if we wanted them, they'd have to make them for us. And so we looked at probably by the time we placed the order to get them, it was 3 months. So if you think that you can just get it from China quickly, that is not the case. It really isn't.
By the way, not to change subjects, but I did want to do this. A good friend of mine, Grace, asked if I get a chance today to ask you about TJ. And what's your other dog's name? Lud?
Ayudi.
Ayudi, yes, Ayudi. How are they doing? You haven't talked about them for a long time on the air.
Ayudi got a brain tumor and passed away. And I was... Yeah, she was the sweetest. She was a Neapolitan Mastiff.
She was beautiful.
Over 100 pounds. Absolutely wonderful dog. Loyal as could be. And just an Italian Mastiff, you might want to call her. It's just a wonderful dog. She passed away. TJ, Thomas Jefferson, is an English Mastiff, 200 pounds. He is just the most wonderful, wonderful dog. He is as close to human as a dog could possibly be. He likes to be hugged. If I lie on the floor with him, he'll put his arms around me. He'll hug me like a person would. He pays attention to everything. And I've been teaching him a lot of words. He knows what popcorn is, so he loves popcorn. So I'm trying to find a snack that would be somewhat healthy, non-GMO. And so I will make popcorn for him, and I'll say popcorn. He'll just run over to the stove. He loves popcorn. He's just a wonderful, wonderful dog. And by the way, for those in the IRS who are listening, he is a tax deduction. And tomorrow...
Yeah, it's therapeutic. Yeah,
well, actually, he's a security system.
And, there you go. There you go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's a huge dog. I mean,
on payroll. That's right.
He's on payroll.
So that's the way you can do these things, where you fight back on these creepy serve and protect jail costs and all the rest of what's going on in this world.
Yeah, you don't pay them. You don't pay those thugs. What I've been teaching.
That's a good word.
I got so angry, Rick. I got so angry with the state of Missouri for threatening to steal our farm. They claimed that we owed them $100,000 in unpaid sales taxes. And I said,
they're doing that in Venezuela right now, this moment, and that is a reflection of what is about to happen in America.
Well, it's already happened to us. It's already happened to another instructor. And what I'm finding out is that the state of Missouri is sending out letters. They're fishing. They're literally fishing, sending letters to people claiming that people owe them unpaid sales taxes. What they're doing, in my opinion, I can't prove this, but I believe this to be the case. They have people who are scouring the internet that work for the state government. They're saying, oh, there's a business. Let's send them a letter. Let's send them this form letter.
How they respond.
We'll insert their name. We'll pick out of the air some number that we think we can extort from them.
Is this
and we'll
the tail light that's out? You're
just
probable
like that.
Cause for excuse?
Yeah. Yes. Well, it's worse than that, because the taillight actually might be out. But this is a case where they're literally fishing, and they're asking, well, they're demanding under threat that people pay. and they hit us with $100,000, $65,000 for 1 year and $35,000 for another year in the same letter, and I said, prove it. I was furious with them. I said, prove it, and they couldn't, because they said that we had these sales, and I said, okay, show me the sales. Show me to whom we sold.
How do we
what?
do punitive? How do we do causing them to be accountable? Punitive damage. How does that work?
I'll tell you how I did it. I gave out. Well, I got the letter. Ultimately, they sicked their senior legal counsel on us, and his name is Stephen Sullivan. So I gave out Stephen Sullivan's name and his phone number on the air many, many, many times. And I read the letter that he wrote me, threatening us, and with fines, interest, penalties. I mean, it's ridiculous. And they had no claim. Now, and what I said on the air, Rick, was when someone gets audited by the IRS, if you were to tell someone, hey, I'm getting audited, there's this belief that the other person would say, well, he must have done something, otherwise he wouldn't have been audited. And I said, that's not the case. We didn't do anything. These thugs are trying to steal from us. And ultimately, I put everything back on them. They said, give us your emails. I said, no. You tell me where the sales are. You're claiming we owe you money. Prove it. Prove it. And they'd say, well, show us your transactions. I said, no. You've got everything that you're going to get. Show me what you're claiming.
All right, so I'm going to, taking that metaphor, I'm going to say to you that the efficiency or loss of electric current in different states is called skimming off the top.
Some of it.
And this is how power companies are getting an extra 5 to 10%.
All right, let's go to the power company. So the reason I'm running for the board of directors, well, one of the reasons is I don't like the idea of the smart meters. So I call the electric utility. Right. Okay, so I call the local electric cooperative. I said, I want my old meter back. And they said, we can't give it to you because we don't have them. I said, what do you mean you don't have them? They said, well, we destroyed them. I said, what? You're talking about 35,000 meters? You destroyed them? Perfectly good meters. They work one day, and the next day you destroyed them? Are you kidding? And they said, well, we destroyed them. I said, they've got glass, they've got aluminum, they've got copper. Are you kidding? You destroyed them? Yep, we destroyed them. I said, well, it's okay. I've got a meter. I bought it on eBay. We'll use mine. Just like the one, exactly like the one you took out. I bought it on eBay for $25 shipped. It's right here. Let's use my meter. So the engineer says to me, how do we know your meter's accurate? I said, that's a really good point. I said, that's a really good...
How do you know yours is accurate?
Well, that was the next sentence that was was uttered. And I said to him, that's a really good point. How do I know yours is accurate? So we had a Mexican standoff. So he's claiming that because they come from him, they're accurate and they're trustworthy and they're reliable and so forth. And I'm saying, oh, I don't know that. How do I know that?
What you do back to him is you forward him some papers by Dr. Beal showing the LD50 ratio of smart meters. They're toxic.
Well, here's what I said. I said, so who approved these smart meters? He said, the board. I said, oh. So how does someone get on the board? Well, they're nominated by the nominating committee. Oh, and I noticed that.
Same old thing.
So I noticed that I was not nominated, and I said, so what about a nomination from the membership? He said, well, hold on. He came back and he said, yeah, you can do that. And I said, so how many signatures? He said, 15. I said, Terry, we're going to be working together. Well, that didn't work because I didn't get elected. I only got 1/8 of the votes. But I'm running again. In the end of next month, I'll be on stage. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. Rick, I just wanted to finish up a little bit on what happened when the state of Missouri decided to attack us. I came out swinging, and I was absolutely furious with them. And so I made them try to prove their case, and they could not. They could not prove their case because they were saying we owed them $100,000 for sales that did not exist. There was no such thing as these sales. who had $1,000 worth of sales. They were out of state, and they're not subject to Missouri sales tax. So their claim was bogus. They were fishing, and they couldn't prove it because it didn't exist. It was all fabrication based on the state. So when I say that they make stuff up, I know they make stuff up because I have proof of it. And what I did was I said, prove their case. They could not prove their case. And I explained to them. I drove up to the state building in Jefferson City, Missouri, and I met with the senior legal counsel. And I explained to him in no uncertain terms that I would be preventing a lot of embarrassment for him personally, because what I was going to do is expose him. And if he didn't back off with this nonsense, I was going to make this public. And I did. And they backed off. And I got a letter. I got a letter in the mail from him apologizing to me for carrying on this fishing expedition. And then what they do? They did it again. I mean, within a few days, they did it again. This time it was for about $1,000. And the same approach, we said, prove it. And then I got an apology from the director of the division or Department of Revenue. An apology. I got 2 apologies in writing saying, yeah, most so sorry. Most so sorry. We apologize for the inconvenience. Inconvenience my foot. Now, here's the point. Boy, you can hear it in my voice, can't you, class? When these thugs come after you, there is no law that says you have to be nice. And I'll tell you what, when they started attacking our farm and threatening to put a levy on our farm, a lien on our farm, I came out swinging. And I exposed those thugs for what they're doing. And you don't have to be nice. Now, from top to bottom, you know that sweet secretary, that sweet receptionist, she's part of the problem. She gets paid. And I don't want to hear this stuff, well, it's my job. It's my job to do this. Well, okay, if you're going to be part of an extortion ring, we're going to treat you like part of an extortion ring. And when you try to steal our hard work and our wealth, we're going to come out swinging. We don't like it. So that's my take on these government thugs. And you know what? If they were really good at what they would, if they were really good at anything, they'd have a real job. They wouldn't be on the government dole. Make work. That's what they're in the business of making work and inconveniencing us. And okay, since you mentioned this, Rick, I saw a sign yesterday, and it was, boy, did it frost me. It's a banner. It's a banner on some guy's property just outside of Springfield. And what did it say? Blue Lives Matter. And then underneath it says, bad guys don't. I want to make sure you all hear that. Blue Lives Matter, bad guys don't. That is such an outrage because obviously that's pro-cop. Maybe it's by a cop. And he's saying bad guys don't matter. Well, who's to say a guy is a bad guy? Who's to say that? Them? The guys with the guns are killing everybody in sight? Is that who we're talking about? The guys who shoot women through doors of police cars? Is that who we're talking about? The guys who put people in handcuffs and put them in a back of a truck and roll them around till they break their necks, or take them down the stairs in the police station and sorry, a guy fell down the concrete steps. Why? Oh, geez, he couldn't break the fall. Why? Because he was handcuffed behind his back. Are these the guys that we're talking about? Blue Lives Matter? Bad guys don't? These guys are, I guess they consider themselves judge, jury, and executioner.
That's the bonfire.
That's why I don't want to have a camera in the studio. You don't want to see me. You don't want to see me when when I'm
I
like
do.
this.
I love it all, man.
Hey, Rick, how many times can we use water?
What? Oh,
Forever?
you mean forever? It's interstellar.
Okay. Rick, hey, thanks so much for being with
My pleasure.
Being with us. RichardAlanMiller.com. RichardAlanMiller.com. The real Fox Mulder of the X-Files.